Yes.
Okay, so all right. So in the last session we stopped here, right? So we discussed about different log levels in Java first, and what when do we use which log level, right? And how to see those log messages, right? So where to see those log messages, right? So and we also discussed like what is log variable. Okay, so by default, you have some predefined variables that Beanshell elements provide, and log variable is one of them. And if you want to write a information message, you use log.info, and if you want to write a warning message, you use it as log.warn, or if you want to write an error message, you'll use log.error. So you set the appropriate level over here, and then you write the corresponding message over here, right? And um, now today let us see so this is a you regarding Beanshell sampler, right? So you can write any custom coding here in the script part of a Beanshell sampler element, and you write some custom coding if you want to manage something, or if you want to write any custom coding to handle it, as per your requirement. Now let's see let me explain one second. Let me hide this. Hide meeting control panel. Okay. Now let's see how when and where to use these other variables like vars, right? As we discussed it, right? So vars, logs, props, and CTX are the important JMeter variables, are most frequently used variables, and let us see how to use each one of them, right? So these are the mostly used JMeter variables: vars, props, logs, and CTX. Now let's see when to use these vars, and how to use that vars, and like how to store some value into a variable, and how to fetch a value from any variable. Okay, so for that I'll add like in the same Beanshell sampler. So I'll write a message, or I will write a statement like this. And also we also discussed that what is Beanshell scripting, by the way. What is a Beanshell script? So
Where we can write code in Java language only. Java
right.
based.
So Beanshell elements are developed using Java, and they can dynamically execute the Java code. They can dynamically execute the Java code. So we had discussed that in the last session, right? So it is a Java scripting language. Our Beanshell elements are developed using Java, so we can write and execute any Java code dynamically. Okay. Now I'll add, to the same Beanshell sampler, I will, I will write a statement like this. And we also discussed that it is a loosely typed language, right? Beanshell is a loosely typed language. So if you want to if you want to use any variables, you need not do the type declaration. So you simply give where, let's say URL, right? So let's say, you define a variable called URL. You need not define whether it is a string variable, or we need not do the type declaration, right? Because Beanshell is a loosely typed language, or it doesn't require the type declaration. So here we are declaring URL as a variable, right?
So if we won't
Uh,
declare a type for it, then
hmm.
what is the data type that it will consider? Like anything, it could be
It can be anything, yes.
like an object variable, object type. Huh?
Yeah, loosely type variable, type variables. Type language. Okay. As it is loosely typed language, you need not declare it, you need not do the type declaration. Now what I will do is, like if I want to store some if you want to store some value into that, so I can use this vars dot, I can use this vars, which is JMeter variable. You have some predefined variables as we discussed it, right? So let me hide this. So I'm using this vars variable, which is predefined variable. So and I want to store some value. Let's say you want to store some value. So now you can write like this. You can use put method for that, and give the variable name. The variable name that I gave is URL. So inside this variable, let's say I will MGMITtraining.com, training.com. So I want to store some variable like this, store some value like this into the variable, right? So now this value gets stored into this variable called URL, and now I'll add one HTTP request. First, if you want to print that variable, or if you want to print that variable into the log message. So see, put method is, what does this put method does? It will store some value into a variable. Store some value into a variable, right? And now let's say I will declare another variable called x, and I'll say, I want to fetch that value. If you want to fetch that value stored into that variable URL, so you can use, where's dot get method. I just want to show you how to use put and get method over here with this example. So, and I will give the variable name. I'll pass on the variable name over here. And this is how we can retrieve a value from the variable by using get method. Put and get are methods, right? And method name always starts with a small letter. And put method is used to store some value into a variable, and get method is used to retrieve value from a variable, fetch value stored in a variable. Okay. Now, I want to print that message, or I want to print that, value into log messages. So for that, again, I'll use log.info, which we discussed yesterday. And now I'll write some custom message here. Like I'll say like value of URL. Okay. And I'll append this value to this, I had stored that value into this variable called X, right? Now I know, like this is custom message. You can give any message here. This is a custom message, and then I am appending the value of X to that variable, right? Now what does this do is, I'm storing a value into a variable called URL here, right? And then if I, by using put method, and if I want to fetch the value, I can use get method from that variable, and I'm printing the value of that variable into log message by using this log.info. Okay. One second, my JMeter got freezed or hanged. One second. All right. Now what I will do is, I'll add a HTTP request here. After this Beanshell element, I'll add a HTTP request sampler, HTTP request sampler, and we are storing some value into a variable, right? So I'll build my request here. So let's say, I want to send a request to that URL. So for that, I am using my website as an example. Okay, let me show you that this is a working website, right? So we are sending a request to this website, HTTP request or HTTPS request to this website. So if I want to send a request to this website, here I will simply give it as dollar symbol curly bracket URL, right? And like if you want to, you can define the protocol here, or else you can use request defaults. I'll use request defaults. That is the purpose of if I want to define some default values, I can use a config element called HTTP request defaults, right? Did we discuss about HTTP request defaults before?
Yes.
Yes.
So here I'll give it as HTTPS. Make sure that it is HTTPS request only. You can see that this is a secure website, connection is secured, and if you see the URL, it is a HTTPS, right? And I'm sending a request. I want to execute this HTTP request, and here I'm giving the default value of the protocol as HTTPS, and the port number will be for what is the standard port number of HTTPS?
443.
443.
443, right? And now like your script will take the default values from here. If you don't specify any value here, it will take the values from the request default element, right? So I had just specified the server name or the domain name, and now like let me add a to this thread group. I'll add a view results tree. I'll add a listener called view results tree, and now let me execute this script. Right. Now let us see the output of this. So what does this Beanshell sampler sends? Here we wrote some custom coding. So basically, let us look into HTTP request. What is the HTTP request that it has sent to the server? So here you can see that it has sent a GET request to this domain or this URL, isn't it? So HTTPS MGMITTraining.com. So it has sent a GET request to that, and what response it got? So you can see that, go select HTML and you can see the what response you got from the server, right? So you can see that, this is the content, that you are seeing over here, empowering minds through technology, etc., etc. Right. So basically, what did we do here? We had set some value of the variable here, and we are using that variable name over here. No, right? So we are using that variable name over here. Okay. And the we can see that this is the request that it is getting passed to, or we are sending to the server, and we got the response like this. We got the response body, or we got the response like this. Okay. So now, any queries? I'll take a pause here. Any queries?
Pawan,
And
a
select,
quick question.
standard parent sample. Yes.
So, will that vice versa work? Now we have created the variables in Beanshell sampler. So,
Mm-hmm.
suppose you want to use some variable from uh, something which is generated outside. You can use that variable in Beanshell sampler. If so, then are we supposed to use the flower brace or not?
You can refer to the variables, like if it is in the same script, or like it will be in the scope will be same, or like if it is in the same, uh, if it is under the same thread group, yes, you can use it. You need not define the variable value here only. But if under the thread group, if you are, like let's say you have some transaction controller, and then there you are assigning some value, and if it is as far as it is under the same script, you can use them. You can refer it anywhere.
So we have CSV data config now. So I
Hmm.
have used a URL which is passed through the data file. So it has the same URL name. So
Hmm.
you don't have to declare it, right? You can directly use the URL in that Beanshell sampler.
Directly use in the Beanshell sampler. Yes.
So can you go
You
to
mean
the
to say, so
sampler?
you mean to say, like, can we define this value in a CSV dataset config? Is it?
Correct. Yes.
Then, like you can directly refer to that, you can directly refer that variable over here. No need of, or no need of writing any custom coding or put method or get method here.
I mean, this particular scenario is
Hmm.
you're trying to get the URL value from the initial sampler, but that's just an example, right? It can
Hmm.
be some complex custom code that we can use up where it is actually involving some logic apart
Hmm.
from passing the values. So
Hmm.
that is where probably we'll have to use up some variable which is passing from CSV or maybe some user-defined variables or something. So
Hmm.
if so, I
Yeah.
mean, if that can be possible, right?
Yes, that is possible. That's possible. So, let me complete these basics, or let me, complete this. Then we'll discuss any queries if you have, we can discuss at the end of the session, or probably next session. You just
I mean, I
jot down your requirement, and I'll cover that.
sure. I
No, no,
mean,
please wait. So see, please wait. So, beginners will get confused unnecessarily, right? So, and they are complaining me saying that, we have some people who are already working on JMeter, so we could not catch up with them. We are getting that kind of thing. So we'll discuss these at the end of the session. Okay.
okay,
So let them take, some baby steps. And then like we can discuss, like maybe at the end of the session or tomorrow's session, we'll discuss that.
sure.
All right. Now, so others understood, right? So, when do we use put method, when do we use get method, and all this? And if you want to write some value, what are we doing, or what exactly we are doing here? We are writing a message, log message, or writing a message to a log file to to JMeter log or a log file, right? So for that we use log.info, and you can write any custom message over here. Let me show you that. Now let me show you that as well. You can see here value of I gave the custom message as value of URL, right? So now you can see that over here, value of URL colon MGMITTraining.com, right? Clear, guys? You know how to use put method and how to use get method. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Right? We'll discuss some, examples, we'll discuss some examples in tomorrow's session, most probably in tomorrow's session. Um, like, there is one question that was asked that was faced by one of our previous batch students. Like, if you want to, uh, let's say, let me show you that scenario. Let me pause recording for a moment. We'll discuss some complex scenarios. So one of our previous batch student got this question in the interview, it seems. So this is the, assignment that they gave to her. So they gave some URL, which is demoblaze.com, and launch the URL, click on sign up, create a user by entering all the fields, like by using unique random data for each iteration without using CSV file. You understood, right? So, this is first, they asked to do user registration. Click on sign up. Means they're asking to do user registration. And now usually till now, we are populating all the test data or credentials into a file, and we are using that CSV file. So instead of that, they ask to generate some random unique data for each iteration, right? Did we discuss any scenario like this? I think in AOS application, I used to cover this
Yeah,
without
Unix
using CSV,
timestamp.
With timestamp,
by
yes.
using timestamp, right? So you can do that with the help of a timestamp. Now the requirement is save the above created user details to a CSV file on successful user creation. That means once the user registration is successful, you need to save those you created user details to a CSV file and log in with the above created user and then select a random category. So here, you need to write some custom coding to write into a file, isn't it? Save the above created user details to a CSV file. If you want to save the uh, created user details, you need to use some file operations, and you need to use either Beanshell or JSR223 post processor, right? Because once this user registration script is executed, then we need to write that if the user registration is successful, then we need to write those credentials into a file and then log in with that above created user and then select a random category, click on a product with maximum cost. Again, if you want to select a product with random cost, you need to write some custom coding again. Okay. So the default inbuilt functions will not help us here. So we need to write some code. I usually cover with, actually this kind of example I used to cover in LoadRunner training by using bubble sort in C language. So I'll try to cover this scenario also for you as well. So click on a product with maximum cost means, so once you have a product, 4 5 products, you need to fetch what are the product cost values. You need to identify, what is the maximum value, and then add that product to that particular product to cart, and then click on the cart menu and place order by entering all the details and verify whether the order is placed, right? So this is one use case or one scenario where you need to write some custom coding. Clear, guys?
In this,
So,
so this scenario, we need to write the two custom codings, right? For
yes,
the
for
writing to a file, and one more
right,
thing is choosing the maximum cost.
maximum cost, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so next thing is there are few more variables. I want to explain few more variables called CTX. CTX, is one predefined variable. Let me add this hitting control. Yeah. So there is a variable called CTX, and CTX represents. Wait, let me just give me a moment. I'll write this also into your class notes document as well for your quick reference. So the next variable that I want to explain is CTX. CTX stands for JMeter context class. JMeter context class. CTX stands for context. What is that context means? It is JMeter context class. Okay, CTX is another variable. So let me use small letter here, right? And now let's see when to use and how to use this CTX variable. So basically CTX variable gives access to the underlying JMeter engine. So this variable, this CTX variable gives access to the underlying JMeter engine. That means, you can get the thread name or thread number, or you can stop thread, right? So once you get access to the underlying JMeter engine, So you can get the thread name, or you can by using get thread get thread name is one method which will get you the thread name, the script name. The thread is nothing but script here, right? And then get the thread num as well. So it will give access, or it will fetch the thread number, right? This method gives access, or this method helps us to get access to the thread name or fetch the thread name, and this will help you to fetch the thread number of that particular in any particular script, right? But if you want to use these methods, you need to get access to the underlying JMeter engine, and then you can apply these methods. Now let's see how to do that. So what I will do is I'll use the ctx variable, and I'll say that ctx dot get thread. Get thread will get the get thread dot. It will give access to the thread. Our thread is nothing but user here, right? User are in. So on top of this, I will use a method called get thread name. Get thread name. Now I will store this into another variable called y, right? I did not use y, right? So where y is equal to ctx dot get thread dot get thread name. And now I'll write, I want to print that value. So I'll use log.info method again. And let me keep some custom message. Thread name colon. I want to use some space, insert some space. So I use some space here, and using plus symbol, I am appending that value to this custom message, right? So now let me run this script now. So what are we doing here? Using context class, we are getting access to the underlying JMeter engine. Get thread will get access to that thread or that thread group, and get thread name method, like method name always starts with a small letter, and then next words will be in init caps. They will use init caps. So if you see this kind of naming convention, you can understand that this is a method or a function, right? A function or method name always starts with a small letter in Java, and class name starts with a capital letter, right? I think we already discussed this before, right? So Java class name starts with a capital letter, starts with a capital letter, and method or function names starts with small letter and init caps, and small letter, and next words will be init caps. Init caps means the first letter will be a capital, right? Now let me run this script. Now let's see what does it print into that log message. One sample log message and log.info. Not getting this sample error message. This is related to this one. Thread name. Do you see any thread name?
Line 34.
Here it is in line 34, right? So thread name is thread group 1 of 1, because we gave here we did not change the thread group name. We'll do one thing. Let me change it to Beanshell sampler demo. Right now it should print this this thread group name. Let me clear this. Let me clear the previous messages, and let me replay the script again. Now you can see that it has printed that thread name or thread group name, isn't it? So you can see that like you can see the custom message. Where is that guys? 1 second. Thread is done. Thread finished. Sample log message. Here it is in line number 15. Thread name is 1 second. This is the name. This is the custom message that you gave, right? Thread name is Beanshell sampler demo 1-1. What does that mean? 1-1. So this 1-1, the first number represents your script number, and then this number represents the iteration, right? So this number represents the script number or thread group number, and then this represents the iteration. Okay, And it has printed the thread group name because we used get thread name method, and we are printing that that value of that variable y. Okay. So this is this is how we use CTX. I'll give you one more example on this. We'll use this CTX variable in some other scenario as well. So in the next thread group, I'll go to the next example where I'll explain how to stop the execution, and there is another pop. Yes. Any queries? Any queries, guys, from anyone before I move to the next example?
Sir, actually in real scenario, why we need this thread name and thread number?
Yeah. In the next scenario, I'll explain that. Suppose you have two requests, and if there is request one, if the request one is successful, then only you have to execute request two, right? If the request one is not successful, let's say if request one is not successful, you don't want to execute the second one, the second request, right? Then you will use this CTX variable. You will use this CTX variable and get thread name, and to suppose you want to. This is another one. This is another scenario, or let me explain. So suppose there are two requests. Suppose there are two HTTP requests. Okay. So if request one is successful, let's say if request one is successful, I want to execute request two. I want to execute request two only if request one is successful. Request two. In case
Also,
request one,
request means HTTP sampler, right?
yes. In case a request one is unsuccessful, I want to I don't want to execute request two. I don't want to execute request two. So how can we do that, right? So this is one scenario, or this is one where in this one scenario or one use case, so where we can use this custom coding and this CTX variable and get thread name and handle that kind of scenario. So for that, I'll add another to the same test plan, I'll add another thread group. Let it be I will disable this initial thread group, first thread group, for a moment. And for this thread group, I'll add two samplers. HTTP request one, request two. Let's say let me call it as HTTP request one and request two. Okay. Now what is the requirement now? Here I'll give it as for this one I'll give it as for sampler one or request one, I'll give the variable name as MGMITTraining.com, right? And I'm hard coding the value here for a moment, right? And which is working. We had checked it just now, isn't it? Now the requirement is this request two should be executed only when request one is successful. Okay. If request two is successful, I want to execute request two. Or I want to execute request two. Let's say I'll write it down here. Suppose we want to execute this request two only when request one is successful. Okay. So if request one is not successful, let's say I want to stop. I don't want to execute request two. Now let's see how to do that. So now see previous example we saw how to use a Beanshell sampler, isn't it? And now here I'll use a I'll use I'll use a post processor here, preprocessor. See, if you want to use a preprocessor, you need to. Okay. So before that, before explaining that, so how we have two requests under this thread group. Usually first request one will be executed and then request two will be executed as per the order, as per their chronological order. Chronological order means in whatever order they are there, the request will be executed in that chronological order, right? First request 1 will be executed and then request 2 will be executed. So let's say, for example, here I gave it as MGMITTraining.com and here I will give it as zerocoding.in. Let's say I'm giving some other website, zerocoding.in. Now let me add a listener called view results tree for this. And let me show you the sequence of execution. So I had disabled this Beanshell sampler demo for a moment, and we are let us focus on this thread group. Let me save this and let me replay the script once, right? So there is no condition here, like then first request 1 will be executed and then request 2 should be executed. Now let's see that. Let me remove this log. Let me close this log viewer panel and let me execute this thread group. Now you can see that request 1 is executed first and this is the request that it has sent to the server. Okay. And then we got a response like this. We got we got that page now, right? And then if you see the request 2, of course, seems like there is some redirection, right? There are some redirections. You can see that there are some redirections. It got redirected to another URL, say, www.zerocoding.in. Again, there is a redirection to zerocoding.in.web. So, basically like request 1 is executed and then request 2 is executed. Ignore those redirections. There are some redirections. So that's why, you see multiple requests here. If you want to, let me to avoid any confusion, we'll do one thing. So instead of this, I'll give perfmatrix.com or instagram.com. Just to avoid this confusion, I'll just give instagram.com. Right. Instead of instagram.com, I'll give, my Insta page. Sorry, instagram.com/MGMITTraining. Now let me, this option is selected, right? Save automatically before run is selected. Anyways, it will be saved before once you run it. What happened to this? https instagram.com. Okay. Can you tell me what is the issue here? Let me show you the error message. What exactly is the issue here?
HTTPS.
Slash is a problem.
Right. Slash is the problem here. So we should use, in the URL, we should always use forward slash. We should not use a backward slash. So by mistake, I had used a backward slash here. This should work. Yes or no? Will it work? Let's see that. What happened? Illegal character found in the host.
You need to give that MGMIT in path, right?
Right. MGMITtraining. Yes, that's correct. This is the server name, and then you need to give the resource path here. Yes, that's correct. And it's a get method only. I don't see any issue now. Let's try this. Please give me a moment, guys. It's okay. Right. Now you can see that, I gave 2 requests, like first request is this, MGMIT to some website. And the second request is to another URL or another website, right? And you can see that the 2 requests are executed in the order in which they are added to the thread group, isn't it? Now let's say, now my requirement is, if if request 1 is not successful, I don't want to execute request 2, right? So, we want to execute request 2 only when request 1 is successful. Clear, guys? So now, like we need to write some custom coding again now, isn't it? So for that, I'll add one, you can do that using either a post processor or a preprocessor. Second. Sorry guys. Yeah, let me resume recording. Able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
You didn't stop the
Alright.
recording actually.
Now, so you can, so you can use this in two ways. You can handle this scenario in two ways. One way is like you can add a post processor to this. So basically, what do we want to do? We want to verify once request one is executed. We want to first verify whether request one is successful or not, right? Based on that, you need to decide whether you can use request. You want to execute request two or not. Okay, and so for that, either you can use a post processor to this request one, or you can use a pre-processor for this request, right? So I'll use a pre-processor over here to this request. I'll add a pre-processor to this. I'll use a Beanshell processor. And I'll write my code here. So first what I will do is so what does a preprocessor, or what would be the execution flow here? First request one will be executed. And then before executing request two, first preprocessor will be executed because it is a preprocessor, it has to be executed before request two executes. Clear guys, are you with me?
Yes.
So first a preprocessor will be executed because we added this to a request, a HTTP request sampler. So first preprocessor will, because it is a preprocessor, so first this should be executed and then this request two will be executed. Now I'll write down my code here to handle that scenario into a preprocessor. So what I will do is I'll in the sampler two, I'll write it as where response code is equal to and I'll use this variable called prev, right? I'll use this variable called prev for that. I'm going to use this. So prev refers to the previous request. Okay. So I'll use prev dot get response code. So now what does it do is obviously this will see what is the previous request. For this request to the previous request is request one. So it will check what is the response code that it got for the previous request. And that value will be stored into this variable called response code. Okay. Now I'll once I get that response code of the previous request, right? And I will write where I'll write log. Let me print into log message, or let me write it to a log message by using log.info response code of previous request column, right? So we'll append that using a plus symbol, and I will pass this variable over here. Okay, so this will simply print into the log message. This will just print into the log message. That's it. Now I want to execute this request to only when request one is successful. So I will write a if condition here. If response code
equal to 200.
response code dot equals is the method. Equals is a method. So if response code dot equals of 200, let's say 200. If the request is successful, if the request is successful, it will return a response code of 200, right?
Yes.
So what I will do is, see, by the way, so if this request one is successful, it returns a response code of 200. Okay, but I want to execute this request to only when request one is. I want to execute this request to only when request one is successful. If it is not successful, if request one is not successful, I want to stop the script. So what I will do is, if response code not equal to 200, I'll verify the condition. If response code not equals to, I'm putting a exclamation symbol to make it not equal to, isn't it? I think we had already discussed this comparison operators previously. So what I will do is here, I will, I will write code to stop this thread. So this is a standard code. You can Google search and you can get it. So org.apache.jmeter.engine standard JMeter engine. Standard JMeter engine. Make sure that there are no typos. So basically, this is the package. Basically, this is the package structure org.apache.jmeter.engine. So this is the package structure and this is the class name, Java class name. Okay, to get access to the underlying JMeter engine, right? So what is a package in Java? Package in Java is nothing but, package is a group of classes. Package in Java, this is nothing but a group of Java classes. Group of Java classes is called as a package. So now I got access to that underlying JMeter engine. Now I am going to apply stop thread method. Stop thread is a method. Stop thread. And thread dot current stop thread basically stops the thread execution. And I am using thread dot current thread dot get name to get the thread name that it will fetch this one, like the thread group. So I'll write some, let me give some name to this. Beanshell sh preprocessor demo. Let me give some name to the thread group. BSH preprocessor demo. And now what let me end this statement with a semicolon. Now what does this do, guys? Like, first it will fetch the response code of the previous request. If it is not successful, then we want to stop the thread. We don't want to execute request 2 basically. And to fail this request, or like I will not give anything over here. I will not pass any server name here. So obviously request 1 will fail because we are not sending, we did not mention any domain name or server name. So now what happens is, like, first request 1 will be executed, but there is no server name over here. And then so this request will not be executed now with this code, right? So this is our requirement that we are discussing, right? We want to execute this request to only when request 1 is successful. Clear, guys? Any queries? I'll take a pause here. Any queries?
One small question.
Yes.
So we have request 1 and request 2. So you have put the Beanshell preprocessor after in request 2. So basically preprocessor will be executed first, any preprocessor.
Right.
And the script starts in the flow order of execution. So it's all the time like when you have given response code dot equals, no? So it means that code of just before the request, or how will the system understand?
Now, can you please repeat your query?
I have a preprocessor which will be executed first. In the execution order, preprocessors are executed first. So,
Correct.
for example, here we have 2 requests, but suppose I have 1 request. So, though the Beanshell sampler is put in the request 2, it is executed first only. So, I mean, but actually it will be executed after request 2, or it is executed
No,
before?
first request 1 will be executed. And then here, when it comes to the second request, as there is a preprocessor, first this will be executed and then request 2 will be executed.
Correct.
So here that execution order will be in play now. But actually, like when you are, when you have 2 requests, first request 1 will be executed and then request 2, control comes to the request 2. But in request 2, we kept a preprocessor. So as per the execution order, first preprocessor should be executed. So first this code will be executed and then this request will be executed.
Okay, because you gave prev dot get response code, it is calling right the previous code, previous request exactly.
No, it will see the what is the output of the previous request. It will see
Correct.
what is the response code of the previous request. This prav gives access to previous request. Prav refers to previous request,
Okay.
right? So it will see what is the response code of the previous request when you write this code, prav.get response code.
I get that. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Now let us see, let us make sure that, this is working as expected.
In order to avoid the confusion, we can add this Beanshell processor as a post processor for the first request also, right?
Yes, you can do either way. Yes, you can do that. I'll show that as well. So I want to come in a particular order. Like first I had explained, I used a Beanshell sampler, then preprocessor, and then post processor. We'll see the post processor as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for this example, in order to avoid confusion, we can add that Beanshell as a post processor in the first request, right?
No, basically, if you add a post processor here, right? So, and in the post processor, if you are using Pravi means there is no previous request, isn't it? In this scenario, we cannot use exactly. Suppose, you add a post processor here. So you want to use a Beanshell post processor. And if you use the same code, private.get response code, there is no, let's see that it should,
Leave the
let's see if
logic
it
tables.
works.
But I think it
Huh?
will give, yes.
I think it will be executed. Let's see
Right?
that. First, let
Just
us
use the
try
same
this.
request code. We
Yeah,
can use the
well,
same
please wait.
request code, right?
Yes. Let me
Because
first
the request will
demonstrate this preprocessor.
be executed and the
That
post processor executed next, right?
what is that? First
Sorry,
request
I
one
think
will
my
be
internet is not stable. Yeah, executed and the post processor will be executed next. So
next. Yes.
we are not going to use the previous that code, previous response code.
Prav should still work. Let's see that. Let's see that. First, let me explain this. Please wait. Just give me a moment. Let me explain this. Now observe here what happened here. Like, my request one is not successful because I did not specify any server name. So that's the reason, now you can see that request 2 is not executed because this failed. The request 1 failed, and as per this, code that we custom coding that we wrote here, the previous request, response code is not equal to 200, isn't it? The previous request response code is not equal to 200. And that's why, you can see that the stop thread method has stopped the execution without executing request 2. And you can see that request 2 is not at all executed. Clear, guys, about this? How does a preprocessor work, or how it will be executed, and what is the role of prev method? Prev variable. Sorry, prev is a variable, right? JMeter in predefined variable. And what does this get response code does, right? So you can also do that. Get response code is one method, and you can also use where response message also. Where response message is equal to private.get response message. You can also use get response message. Now, what is response message? You can use this function as well to handle this. So you need to replace, wherever you are using response code, you can also replace this with a response message. By the way, what is response message? Get response message. What is meant by response message? You know what is response code, isn't it? So you have different HTTP status codes. Those are also called as response codes, right? And now what is response message? What is response message, guys?
Okay.
Success.
Right. If the request is successful, you get a okay, right? You get a response message as okay,
Yeah,
isn't
for
it?
the 200 is okay. Yes.
Right. So you can, here you have to give okay. If response message not equal to okay, then you can you can also write, code in that way. You can also handle this in that way. And, let me comment out these lines by using multi-line comment, right? And I hope everyone knows what is, single line comment and multi-line comment. If you observe here, these are single line comments. In the previous example or in the previous thread group, I had used a single line comment over here, right? This is a single line comment. And this is a multi-line comment. Use slash, star, and end with the star slash. So this is called as multi-line comment. Means if you want to comment out more than one line at a time, we use this multi-line comment. Clear, guys? Now, you can repeat this. You can use the same logic here, but we are, going to use response message now. So here I'll give it as, okay. And then I need to use, get response message. Sorry, this variable. So response message dot equals of not equal to okay. Then we are going to stop the execution. Now let me show you this also, this example as well. Okay, so I'm not sending any server name over here. Obviously my request 1 will fail, and once it comes, once the control comes to a preprocessor, first it will get the previous request response message. So obviously it will not be okay, right? So, and this if condition will become true, it is not equal to okay, and the stop thread will stop the execution of this request. So request 2 should not be executed as per the logic that we defined. Now you can see that the same result when we use response code or response message, the script works in the same way, right? Clear,
So
guys,
here,
everyone?
so here we didn't use the CTX message for stop thread.
Yes, you can like there is a way to control this using CTX also. Using CTX also you can manage this. But here, I used a package. I used this package and method in that package. Standard JMeter engine is a Java class. Stop thread is a method under that Java class. Okay, so there should be some code, like to handle this using context CTX variable as well. I'll take a pause here, guys. Just a moment. Okay, so any queries, guys? Now if you don't have any queries, let us see let us see the same code in using post processor. Let's see if it works with the same. Do one thing. I'll copy the same code into a post processor. Let me enable this. Let me disable this one. So see, I think the same code doesn't work here because
Sir,
like
in place of prev, can we give the var like vars got get? We already used now. Can we use
what is that?
in place of prev? You had given that in place of prev. Can we given vars like vars dot get means it will get that? Is it is work or no? I don't know. Like you said, for the if you are adding that post processor for the first request, we didn't have the previous response, right? So can we use in place of that vars like
No,
vars?
we can't use vars. Vars cannot refer to the request, right? So prev refers to the previous request, but vars vars doesn't refer to that previous request. And I think it will not work here. You cannot use the same code as it is here because so
Yes,
basically
something.
like if request 1 is not successful, we don't want to execute request 2. So I think like this the same code doesn't work here because see we are calling this in this code we are calling the stop thread method on this request only, right? So post processor like we need to come up with a different code here if you want to use a post processor. Okay, but basically so post processor will be executed once the actual request, once the parent or the parent request will be executed, then the child element will be executed if you use a post processor. But in this case this is not a right example or not a right scenario to use a post processor here. Okay, so we'll go with this one only. You can use this one to handle this particular scenario. So because like we are calling this stop thread method in this request, isn't it? So in this scenario, post processor, using the code in the post processor, the same code doesn't work in a post processor. Okay. Yeah. Any queries, guys,
Sir,
before we close?
can we use that if else condition like if response code is equal to 200, then I need to print that first request like my request is success, or else my request is not success like that. Can we use that like if
Yes,
else
you can use
condition
if else condition. Yes.
instead of these and all? Okay.
No,
Pawan, I
that
have a
see.
small question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if JMeter gives those suggestions or not. We have these
Mm-hmm.
different variables, right? CTX, vars, props, etc.
Mm.
So, generally, in when we are trying to do the Selenium automation or anything, any Java related stuff now, we get those suggestions, right? Because we have jars in it. So, likewise, now I have prev function, prev dot. So, once I get dot,
Mm-hmm.
whatever methods are underlying in that prev thing will is there any way in which we can get to know which all methods are there in it, or we'll have to just write it on?
No. So this is not an IDE, right? I understood what are you referring to. Basically, you are referring to IDE like IDE integrated development environment like Eclipse or
Yes.
NetBeans, right?
Yes.
No, but this is not an IDE, right? So we don't get that. We have to write that code manually only. It doesn't show any sessions or as such.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, all right then. So we'll stop it here for today, and we'll continue tomorrow, I guess. It's already 9:10, so I need to move out. So we'll stop it here for today and we'll continue tomorrow. Let me update the patch tracker.